Working Fans Podcast. Cool.
Yep.
All right, here we go. Coming down 3, 2.
Welcome back for another week of the Working Fans Podcast. This is AJ. I'm the former wrestler. We've got Dave, the ultimate fan, here with us as we do every week. Our producer Joe likes to make us sound good and makes us look way more professional than we actually are. As always, you can find us on Twitter, that's @FansWorking, Facebook, Working Fans Pod. We've got email where you can reach out to us and please contact us to let us know what you think of the podcast and for any ideas that you might have. That's workingfanswrestlingpod@gmail.com. We're on Instagram where you can keep up with us at workingfanswrestling_pod. And then you can now listen to us on all major platforms, including Anchor.fm. We're on Google Podcasts, Spotify, Breaker, Overcast, Pocket Casts, Radio Public, Apple Podcasts, and you can actually check us out on YouTube. Now, it's important when you go onto the Apple Podcasts and YouTube, hit that subscribe button, give us a rating, let us know what you think so you can help us out and we can continue to do what we love and bring you guys in as fans.
Hey, it's Jason Agnew from Sunday Night's Main Event, and you are listening to the Working Fans Podcast.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Working Fans Podcast. This is Dave with AJ, and we have the Emmy Award-winning Jason Agnew on the line. Jason, how you doing?
Oh, man, that is, you're starting up real high there. I like to keep expectations low. So why didn't you just say, wrestling radio show host? That's what we should go with for this. Because, yes, there was an Emmy way back in my past, but please don't start there.
Okay. I just was curious if you had a little background on the story, because we looked it up and we thought it was pretty cool. So.
Yeah, it was, along with any fans listening to this might know me as the host of Live Audio Wrestling for many years. And now I'm doing Sunday Night's Main Event, similar shows, Sunday Night, etc. But my main job for years was running a TV station. I was an executive producer of a TV station here in Canada called Bite Television, and in 2007, somehow, someway, we won an international Emmy for Best Interactive Channel. And that was when interactive channels were quite the novelty. So yes, there is one of those in my history. That's a nice little thing on my resume, which apparently, yes, you found.
Well, actually, we were going to ask you about live audio wrestling too, and I follow Sunday Night's Main Event every week. Actually, big fan. That's how I started looking you up. And I was just curious. There seems to be how was that transition? I don't know the whole story because when I started listening to podcasts, you were just starting on Sunday Night's Main Event. And the law was disbanded. I think that has something to do with the anthem thing. I could be wrong, though, so I'm just asking you. Okay.
No, you're absolutely right. It does have to do with the Anthem thing. So, if you go back, Anthem, of course, for those who don't know, is now the company that owns Impact Wrestling. And previous to that, in 2005, it wasn't Anthem at the time, but a group called the Fight Network came into play here in Canada, and they were starting up a digital television station called the Fight Network. They purchased Live Audio Wrestling away from its old owners in order to use it basically as a way of promoting their television channel, because Live Audio Wrestling, the law had a huge following. I mean, it was one of the first out there along with Wrestling Observer, and we actually have Dave on our show each and every week, so it was we were kind of the two first that were doing not only radio shows, but podcasting as well. I'm talking way back, if you guys remember Real Audio, that's when we first started running on it, 99. So anyhow, the Fight Network comes in, they buy it, they use it as a promotional tool. Years later, Anthem purchases the Fight Network and therefore purchases the law. And it was weird at that time because, they own Impact Wrestling and we're a show that is non-biased. I mean, we talk shit about Impact Wrestling all the time is what I'm trying to say.
Right.
It's hard not to, right? So we knew down the line that there would be a conflict. And what ended up happening is Anthem decided to put all their resources into the money pit known as Impact Wrestling and decided to, remove their radio division. And that was us, myself, Dan Lavransky, John Pollock, Wei Ting, all of us in one fell swoop were booted one day at the end of October in 2017. And since then, John and Wei, of course, have gone on to do Post Wrestling, and myself, Dan Lavransky, do Sunday Night's Main Event on TSN Radio. At least we got to keep an affiliation with TSN Radio.
We were very happy to see that you were able to go on to Sunday night's main event because we were Law fans. To me, what you were able to do on there, you combined not just talking wrestling, but you also talked MMA, and you gave us an honest point of view. There's so many of these shows that just don't keep it real and don't keep it honest with their opinions, and the fact that you were that fresh, thank you very much for continuing on. Now, going forward...
I pride myself at being a bit of a dick, so Jay Agnew lives on here. But you know what, let me say this, I pride myself on being a bit of a good dick as opposed to CM Punk right now, who I just can't handle anymore, but I'm sure we'll get there at some point.
Oh, absolutely. I can't wait to discuss that with you. As Dave knows, I always wrestled as a heel, and the reason why I wrestled as a heel is because much like Tully Blanchard, I'm just a natural heel. I love sarcasm. One of the questions that we have for you, and it's something that we find interesting, what made you want to get into TV? Did you have anything when you were young, especially growing up in Canada, that triggered you and made you want to go in that direction?
You know, I was always a big fan of comedy. I've loved, Saturday Night Live since I can remember, essentially, like really influenced by the Mike Myers and Dana Carvey years and Wayne's World. And of all things, I got into TV. I always wanted to be in radio and television. I started radio when I was in school in, I guess, 97 or so. I started with the law in 99. And I was doing okay in radio, but I was already going to school for television, so I branched over into TV and started hosting and producing, and it's fun. I mean, my standard line, and it was something that I heard way back in the day from a guy I worked with at the Fan 590 named Roger Lajoie. He said he had like 6 different jobs in the industry, and he said, my vocation is my vacation. And I feel that way. Like, I love what I do, and I just want to do more of it. The world of TV is cool. I mean, I love hosting. I love interacting with people on air, and I really do have a great time doing it. And for the years at Bite TV, I was just able to surround myself with some really great people and create fun stuff. I mean, I know a lot of it was cheap and cheerful, but it was definitely fun to make.
So a little inside joke here. Our producer Joe had left us a note because he wanted us to ask you a specific question. Kids in the Hall or SCTV, and I told him, I said, listen to me, you racist mother. Don't you think it's possible that he actually likes Saturday Night Live even though he's from Canada? so a little inside humor there.
Yeah, I would take SNL. I think it was more influential. I mean, all those shows are great for different reasons, I would say. But and I mean, Kids in the Hall was really cool because it was just a group of guys that were putting on a TV show, and CBC grabbed them. And since then, there's a couple other TV shows right now on here in Canada, like Tall Boys and Baroness One Sketch, who have kind of taken that same mode and that same model, which is really cool to see that live on up here in Canada. But yeah, as far as influence goes, it was me staying up late watching SNL. And really, if you want to link this back, one of the weird things, if you think back to the 80s, when I would have started watching SNL, part of the reason why I started catching that show, because I was trying to watch Saturday Night Main Event, but it was only on once a month.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, a quick sidebar question here before we get into the more wrestling. Since I know you do a lot of comedy and you do a lot of improv, I was kind of curious, like in today's culture, it's very PC. Is it more difficult, are you finding, to do comedy now, or does it matter? Is that an influence at all? I'm just curious.
Yeah, there's definitely a change, and I don't see it as much with stage stuff, as I'm fairly new to doing stage stuff. I'm talking like I started doing more stage in 2012 after I stopped working at Bite Television. That parting of ways happened. So, but at Bite, I was doing a show called The Conventioneers with my partner Matt Chitt, who has since gone on to do Splat a lot with me as well. And it was insult culture. Like, we'd go to conventions, Comic-Cons, etc., and do insult jokes to people dressed in silly costumes or had, way too much dedication to the products they were trying to sell. And doing that in 2006, 7, 8 is very different than doing it in 2019, because we tried to do it again just a couple years ago in a show called Craft, and it was a lot more challenging. The culture has definitely changed.
I actually do stand-up comedy now. And when I'm up on stage, I'm an insult comic. And it is hard sometimes to know what lines that you can cross. And you have to be a little fearless when you're up there. And people don't understand. In this PC world that we live in now, you never know when people are going to get ultra offended. But if you go up there as a comic and worry about that, you're never going to be funny.
Yeah, but here's the thing, AJ. I mean, if you're doing that in a comedy club, those people have signed up and bought a ticket to watch you and potentially be insulted.
Exactly.
So you have a little bit more leeway in a comedy club than you would when we were out at a convention insulting people that were just there. So I find that same thing when I'm doing improv shows. You know, I do improv shows. I do wrestling-centric improv shows as well. And the audience is there to participate in what you're about to do. So there's a lot more leeway.
Oh, yeah. What you guys do is fearless. Oh, God. To go out there to people that haven't actually bought the ticket and are literally there for what they just find to be a part of their life, and to be able to do that, I have all the respect in the world for what you guys do.
Yeah, it got really difficult in 2017 when we tried it again. But it's just the way the world is going. So, you know, there's other ways to make people laugh. You just have to work a little bit harder to do it.
All right, Jason, so since we got you on, let's get into a little discussion about wrestling. Right now, I think the big hot topic the last couple of months would be the Wednesday Night Wars. So what's your take? What have you been enjoying about whether it's NXT or AEW? Like, how would you break both promotions down?
I enjoy the whole aspect of it.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think back to when wrestling was really fun to watch. I mean, I'm up here in Canada, right? So when the Attitude Era was happening and the Monday Night War was on, we were not actually able to watch both of those shows, Raw and Nitro, at the same time, because TSN would broadcast Raw at 9 and then Nitro at midnight. So we'd have to wait and get your tape ready. And there was also no real social media back then. So this is like an advanced world now with social media going back and forth at one another. These two things running at the same time, though we're in Canada and I still can't watch both at the same time because TSN is only running AEW. But I love the back and forth. I love the fact that there's competition. It's refreshing and it only makes the marketplace better. I've been saying that for near 20 years now. And along with that, a fresh product is very interesting to watch. You know, basically you have a clean slate in AEW and they're able to hold to the things that they feel strongly about. They're trying this win-loss thing. Their belts have so much prestige attached to them right now. Nothing's been tarnished. Nothing's been ruined there at the moment. Well, I mean, aside maybe from that hardcore match a couple weeks ago. But I just really enjoy the entire product. Cody is someone that if you look back, it's someone that I never would have expected to do what he's done. And he is one of the most important individuals in professional wrestling right now. Chris Jericho is incredible. I call him, and I've always referred to him as the Madonna of professional wrestling. And I say that because if you followed Madonna's career, she had an incredible ability to reinvent herself with a new look and a new sound over and over and over again. And that's what Chris Jericho is able to do. And he's done it once again. I don't care if this guy is almost 50. He's the best heel in the business right now. And it's fascinating to watch what they're doing on AEW. And then if you look slightly under that, oh my God, MJF is there and just chomping at the bit, you know, to move up on the card. And it's such a delight to watch and listen to every week. So it's such a fresh product. On the WWE side, on NXT, well, I kind of think, I was a guy who was, of course, following NXT when it first started in its current incarnation, and I was doing a weekly podcast about it that was a part of the Law family. And I actually think that since NXT has gone on to USA, and even a little bit before that, the product is not as cool and not as it doesn't have that much of a cult following like it used to have, so it does seem a little less special to me. There's a little bit more importance on it now, but I think WWE has a lot of work to do with NXT, and they can't win this war. In my opinion, they can't win because NXT is not a fresh product. It still has the WWE label on it, whereas AEW, it's fresh, it's new, it's exciting.
Yeah, I was actually saying to AJ one time, I almost feel like if NXT didn't have WWE attached to it, if they were just a separate entity but booked the way they are, they would be better off. I almost feel like having the WWE name when you're going up against AEW hurts them.
Yeah, because you're not an adversary. You're just part of the machine.
Right. I do have to say, out of the two of them, and I know AEW is just beginning, I always try to say this, like I'm definitely enjoying the characters more in AEW. I'm loving the angles more. But I do feel, and it's just beginning, one thing NXT's been doing well for me personally is the women's division. Like, every week they've managed to have one or two women matches and they have a little profile, and it's one thing I'm like, okay, I'm glad they got this right now because this is keeping me like interested where I want to make sure I watch both every week.
Shayna Baszler is the most protected champion in WWE. I completely agree with you that the NXT women's division is it's the best women's division out. No, wait. I mean, I love Tessa in Impact, but she seems to be fighting with the men now. So I will say, so yes, NXT is the best women's division in wrestling right now. And I would say the exact polar opposite. AEW is the worst women's division in wrestling right now. I have not bought into Riho. I don't enjoy her. A lot of people do. I don't. So, and I don't really care for Nyla Rose. I don't care for Britt Baker at all. So, I mean, and I don't like what Brandy is doing on the heel side of things. I don't think it's a proper place for her because she's linked to Cody. I love Kong, but Kong I don't think needs Brandy beside her. So it's like I've knocked down 4 of their main pillars of the division. We don't have to even get into Allie. So, I mean, there's nothing there for me in the AEW women's division. So I agree with you. NXT women is fantastic, especially juxtaposed to the AEW women's division.
Jason, you've done a great job of saying basically everything that I've told these guys for the last couple of weeks. I agree with you.
He's been grinning ear to ear after everything you said.
I'm literally smiling like a kid in a candy shop. You mentioned Tessa Blanchard. I think Tessa Blanchard is the future of women's wrestling, and not just women's wrestling, but wrestling in general. The fact that she is going to have an opportunity with Impact to be the first woman to go for their version of a world title, to me is absolutely incredible and opens up doors for women everywhere.
Yeah, listen, here's the thing. I love Tessa, and I actually forgot her gender when she was in that 6-man person, I guess, ladder match at the last Impact pay-per-view, because she was the best person in the ring, not only in that match, but she was the best person in the ring all night long. The thing is, I mean, if you look back to Lucha Underground, like Lucha Underground was highly criticized for having men and women, the intergender matches, and Impact is really still running under the radar despite what they have going on with Access Wrestling right now, so I'm not sure it's the right move. I mean, I prefer for Tessa to be queen of the women's division there and be very protected, as opposed to, probably end up doing some weird hardcore match with Sami Callihan. But I love her. I think she's tremendous. I think she's the best female wrestler right now, period.
Yeah, I kind of agree with what you're saying there. I think the thing with Impact is they're just trying something to gain attention here. Yeah, I think Tessa's a standout star as it is, and personally I prefer that she was just focused more on the women's division, because at the end of the day, it's not like it's Impact. It is what it is. It's like they can improve as much as they want. Tessa winning the world title on Impact isn't like she won the world title on AEW or WWE or NXT even.
But to Jason's point, one of the things that she does that's amazing is she really does do what you said at the last pay-per-view. She makes you forget that there's a woman in the match, which is not something that any other woman really has been able to do.
Well, I mean, I don't know if any other woman has been given that opportunity to do that as well. I mean, there's intergender matches on the indie scene, but as far as mainstream goes, as mainstream as you can consider Impact Wrestling, Tessa is the one that's been given that opportunity, and she hasn't dropped the ball at all. Like, she is so fast and so crisp in the ring that she doesn't miss a step with anyone else in there.
While we're talking wrestling here for a little bit longer, one other thing I wanted to hit you with. I was listening to your podcast this week, and you had a very interesting hot take on CM Punk. Doesn't seem like you're a fan of him these days. Can't say I blame you, but I'd like you to kind of elaborate and give us your thought on that for our listeners who may not know.
I think part of it is because I was such a fan of CM Punk. And in CM Punk showing up this past week on WWE Backstage and making his re-debut there, and I know people are saying, oh, it's Fox, it's not WWE, but let's be honest, he was all over Raw last night as far as them promoting him. So he's clearly back in the company. But I went and I watched the infamous pipe bomb promo again because I was trying to figure out why I didn't like CM Punk coming back to WWE, like why this rubs me the wrong way so badly. Wrestlers go from place to place, and it's kind of like some are cool, some are like, oh, the organization is grasping at straws to bring this person in. Oh, I don't like this, I do like this. But this one in particular just got under my skin and just made me kind of feel gross. And I was trying to figure out why. So I went back and I watched the pipe bomb promo that everybody remembers. And what I realized is at that time, CM Punk doing that was not just CM Punk speaking or Phil Brooks speaking for CM Punk. It was Phil Brooks speaking for CM Punk, who was speaking for every wrestling fan that was watching, that was tired of the WWE product. And he represented the fans. And then he left WWE, and it was all bad, and, you know, he did the podcast with Colt, and it was just like, you know what, this guy's fed up, and I would be too. He's representing the culture of the WWE fan that is pissed at WWE because they're not getting what they want. And now, fast forward, with all the talk of CM Punk, who I've talked so much on the show about game changers and who AEW could have or who another wrestling organization could have as a game changer. You know, like when Jericho went to WWE, or when more so, I mean, even bigger than that, when Hogan went to WCW. Like, that's a game-changing move. So who in the wrestling community is still out there? And to me, the answer was always CM Punk, because he was so popular. He broke into the mainstream, or at least the geek mainstream, in doing stuff like Talking Dead. So I was always thinking, like, if CM Punk and AEW can work together, my goodness, this is so big, and it's a big F-U to WWE. And that's what he's all about. He's counterculture. He's got Punk in his gimmick name. Like, he's punk rock. So then he shows up on WWE Backstage, and I was just like, oh, man, you did what every single other wrestler did. You gave in to Vince, you went back, you're just another Bret Hart, Jesse Ventura, Bruno Sammartino. It's never say never all over again. You don't represent the fans. You don't care for your friends, considering what happened with Colt and that debacle. I don't know all the details, but I've always seen CM Punk, when in interviews, out of WWE character, being very difficult. He just seems like a difficult guy. And now he goes back, and he's just like everybody else. And I just thought he was going to be different. So it really rubbed me the wrong way. And then I kept thinking, and I'm like, look at what Punk, the angry guy who does a podcast, does versus the other podcast that was a real kind of eye-opener for wrestling fans was Ambrose, Moxley now. And look at what Moxley's doing. He's paired with guys like Cody and Jericho, who are actually, this is going to sound really weird because it's beyond the wrestling spectrum, but they're trying to make a difference in the wrestling world. They're actually trying to make things better for fans, and Punk went the exact opposite way. He's only trying to make things better for himself. He only cares about himself. And it really rubs me the wrong way. And I rarely get emotionally invested that much in wrestling anymore. But this one went outside the walls of wrestling to just think of his mentality, and it really rubbed me the wrong way. So there's, long story short, there's my answer.
No, that was great, man. Actually, quick sidebar. I was going to ask you something else, but when you said Moxley, you triggered something to me, and I wanted to ask you, Moxley, that interview he gave with Jericho, he was very forthcoming, and he complained about a lot of stuff that he didn't like in WWE, but he also made sure to say that he appreciated everything they had done for him, took the real high road. So that brings me to Seth Rollins, everybody's favorite guy on Twitter these days. Yeah,
Mr. High Road.
Why do you suppose, I've heard Roman been asked about AEW, and he doesn't take these shots. Why do you think that is with Seth? I haven't quite figured that out. Do you think this is just him trying to gain heat on his character? Is this just a personal thing, or he's just not very good at answering these types of questions? I'm just confused at the whole thing.
Oh man, you're not the only one confused. I think everyone is confused. I mean, this guy is just so unlikable. Just everything he does in social media and everything he does on camera is not believable, and it's just unlikable. I don't know if there was anyone who needed a PR person or an image consultant. It's Seth Rollins.
Yeah.
This guy's. I'm tired of it. If you think about it, guys, for all those years, Roman Reigns was criticized being on top because he was Vince McMahon's guy, and he was the one that was pushed, and suffer and succotash, that line, etc., etc. Well, now, if you think about it, from the I'm going fiend hunting on over, Seth Rollins is the new Roman Reigns. He is the guy that WWE is forcing down the fans' throat, and they are outright rejecting.
Yeah.
Well, the funny thing to me about Seth Rollins is he's never come across as likable. He's another person who just comes across as selfish and just, this is the WWE machine. When Moxley came out, he was offered the big contract, had the ability to stay, and he went truly with what he believed in and said, you know what, I'm going to go with AEW because it's the right thing to do, and I'm a hypocrite otherwise. To me, Rollins coming from being Tyler Black and coming from the indies to all of a sudden be shitting on these other organizations and other wrestlers is just incredibly hypocritical.
I mean, what's he going to say, right? I mean, the choice is, to me, the choice that I'd make in that situation is probably to just stay quiet. And I think you saw a lot of Roman Reigns staying quiet when he was in that position. But Seth is deciding to speak in and out of character, and neither one of them is working real well. I kind of think he's in a no-win situation unless he just shuts his mouth.
All right, so originally, Joe had that question for us that we already buried, Kids of the Hall or SCTV. So I was kind of thinking, I wanted to play that a little bit with you since you have a background in comedy and wrestling.
Yeah.
The preference, WWE or WCW?
I grew up with WWE, so I have to say WWE. You got to remember, so I was in Toronto growing up, and we didn't really have much access to the WCW product up here until TSN started airing it. So I'm a WWE kid, and that's going to be my preference.
Okay. Actually, rather than just throw a random, because I don't know who you were really into at this time in wrestling, but a favorite, you have a favorite announcer of all time? Not currently, but maybe currently and all time. Because for me, currently, I really like Morrow. I know he's a bit, he's not everybody's cup of tea. Some people love him, some people hate him. I like him. But Jim Ross isn't my favorite now, but he is my favorite of all time. When I go back, I grew up on Jim Ross.
Yeah, okay. So my favorite of all time, this might be a little obscure, but it is a catchphrase that I use at the end of every show. Not only every show, but every TV show I do as well. When I host, I use the phrase, "Don't you dare miss it." Right. And that is an ode to a guy up here in Canada who was the backstage reporter named Billy Red Lyons. And he was always one of my favorites. He was just this older guy who would hold the microphone and just be there and be in the right place for the behind-the-scenes interviews. So I'm going to go with Billy Red as your maybe not a play-by-play guy, because he didn't do play-by-play, but wrestling announcer persona. Okay. And then modern day, I have been so incredibly impressed by Excalibur. It is beyond belief. This guy is incredible. So he is my number one, and I'm going to give a weird honorable mention to Tom Phillips, because I think he's getting the short end of the stick in WWE right now, and I think he should be sitting in the Raw chair.
I want to touch on something you had said, or maybe actually it might not have been you. Actually, it might have been the other guys down at Post. Somebody made this comparison. But you can tell me if you agree or not. We talk about how the three-man booth in WWE kind of sucks, but in AEW, when it's Tony, Jim, and Excalibur, I actually think it works a little better than, say, just Jim and Excalibur. I almost feel like they complement each other a little bit better having a three-man booth in that situation. You might not agree. I'm just curious what you think, though.
Well, what if it was Tony and Excalibur?
that might even work even better.
I got a little heat.
I think there's one issue on that broadcast team, and it's not Tony and it's not Excalibur. Jim's gotten better, but he's a shell of what he used to be.
I agree. I am the biggest Jim fan. AJ's gonna throw me under the bus.
I got a little heat last week because I said the same thing. I said we all love Jim Ross. Not a single one of us don't love what Jim Ross has brought to the business, but it's passed him by, and he's not keeping up with it the same way he is. When he gets to the main event match, he does good with the three-man booth, but when it's that middle-of-the-road wrestling and the luchadors and the new tag style and stuff that he doesn't understand, he pretty much just throws it in the garbage can.
Yeah, I've crapped on JR a bit too much. He's a legend. Obviously, Cody is pulling people that he knows are very valuable from days of wrestling gone by, and I think perhaps JR may look a little bit worse just because of how great Tony Schiavone's been. Right. And it's just because a lot of us may remember Tony Schiavone from when WCW was falling apart, and therefore, don't think of him in the most positive manner, but my goodness, that guy is great.
Yeah, he's really stepped up. I remember Tony obviously growing up with the Crockett's and NWA where he was pretty good and he stood out to me. But yeah, the end of Nitro era, Tony Schiavone really phoned it in. And, I've enjoyed him on the podcast, but boy, Yeah, now that he's back announcing, you can tell he's really working hard and does his homework.
He's found his passion again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just healthy living, too.
I think JR has found some of that, but, you know, he's older, and JR has had a tough go, you know, with all the Bell's palsy and losing his wife and WWE shitting on him over and over again. Like, I feel bad for the guy, and sometimes he does come across a little bit like cranky old man.
I did hear Shivani say one time on one of the podcasts that I guess they just kind of found it amusing. Like, he gets a little fired up, like when certain things he doesn't find make sense, like if they're not using the tag rope. And, like, you know, they're just right. And I guess one time Shivani was asking, he didn't know if they picked it up because of the 7-second delay, but JR was just like, God damn. And I guess Excalibur and Tony had to, like, hold it in because they started laughing at him. And I just thought, that's got to be interesting chemistry on that set sometimes.
As far as Jim's getting angry in wrestling, he'll always be number 2 as far as Gyms go.
Yeah, I'm going to ask you.
Cornette is always number 1.
Oh, we know.
That's actually where I was going to go next with this, now that you mentioned that. What do you think of what Jim Cornette is doing now? I know that Matt Kuhn came out last week and basically said Jim Cornette doesn't belong in wrestling anymore. And I know that they've had a little bit of a feud. But what is your stance on the current state of Jim Cornette?
Oh, don't you think he's really nicely positioned where he is in NWA Power? I think it's perfect.
I agree 100%. I think that it's where he belongs. It's basically brought him back to 1987. And I think that I think that if we leave him there in 1987, that we're all a little bit better off.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Jim is someone who loves old school wrestling and thinks it should still be old school wrestling. And we all have what we grew up with and what we loved about the industry and wanted to be that. But, you know, the industry evolves. Everything evolves. We started this conversation talking about how society and comedy has evolved. Well, wrestling's no different.
Yeah, my grandfather still thinks Bruno Sammartino is the best wrestler he ever saw. So sometimes...
Well, Bruno Sammartino is the best wrestler ever for your grandpa. Of course he is.
A couple other quick questions before we finish this up here. You guys do talk about MMA sometimes. How big of a passion do you have for MMA as well, Jason? Because it's obviously something...
Man, it's dropped so much.
Yeah, okay.
I was I was at the point where I would always choose watching MMA/UFC over wrestling at a certain point. And something really happened when UFC went to, it started when UFC went to Fox. It really fell off. When Spike TV was the UFC channel, and they had the ability to make stars, it was incredible. And I mean, this dates back to, you know, Ortiz and Liddell and GSP and Hughes, and then, you know, Silva, and all of these cool characters that came about. They were real life pro wrestlers, you know what I mean? Like, they all had different personalities, and you wanted to see certain guys matched up against other guys, and it felt like every time, and I mean once a month, when you watched the pay-per-view, it was special. And then, much like with wrestling, you know, more is more for UFC. They move on to Fox, they want more programming. All of a sudden, there's a card every week. I don't want to watch it every week. I want to get together with my buddies once a month and watch it, and only see guys fight, you know, twice a year. Not all of these dudes. Like, I want a smaller amount. So, with the Fox deal and with the oversaturation of the marketplace, I really fell out of it. Also, if you've noticed, since the era of McGregor and Rousey leaving and GSP leaving, UFC depends more so on their brand than they do on individual stars. And I really think that they miss out, because it's an individual star, a personality that gets you involved in, you want to see person A fight person B. Like, honestly, the fact that GSP and Conor McGregor never got into the goddamn octagon together is completely and utterly ridiculous. The most money in UFC history is being left on the table because those two were never paired together. And missing opportunities like that and the oversaturation of the marketplace has really pulled me away. So I can't even say I'm a fan anymore. I've really been drawn away. You take that, the oversaturation there, and then the fact that there is at least double as much wrestling to watch every week now in order to do Sunday night's main event. it's a lot tougher to get everything done. So UFC has fallen out of the picture for me.
Do you think that it's almost followed the WWE's playbook in the sense that it's become more about the machine than actually having the superstars that they develop and actually make you want to follow the product?
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly it. You push a brand as opposed to pushing an individual. And everybody buys in a little bit less because it's like when WWE started promoting their house shows. It's like WWE is coming to town. Done. Full stop. As opposed to what it used to be, it's like Hulk Hogan is coming to your town. He's going to take on the one-man gang. And then you're like, oh my God, Hogan's taking on the one-man gang. So it was all about the personalities first and the brand second. And that's what UFC to me used to be. And now it's all brand.
Okay, one more question before we have you plug anything you want, Jason. Favorite comedian of all time? I wanted to ask you that too before I forget.
Oh man, that's a tough question.
Yeah.
The first person that springs to mind, because when I perform on TV, when I did so on Bite TV, a lot of what I would pull in regards to the fearless performer aspect was from Will Ferrell. I really enjoyed his run on SNL and Will Ferrell, the fact that, he can scream and insult you to your face, and you'll just laugh out loud at it. And he's great. So with putting me on the spot and thinking of it like that, I will say Will Ferrell.
Jason, if there's anything that you would like plug that you have going on, please let us know so the fans can tune in and catch you doing that.
Well, sure, guys. I mean, it's a wrestling podcast, so let's talk about my wrestling radio show. It's called Sunday Night's Main Event. It's on Sunday nights on TSN Radio in Canada. You can stream it live at 11 p.m. at tsn1150.ca. But the easiest way to get it, because who listens to radio live? It's all about podcasting. And you can do that at sundaynightsmainevent.com and follow me on Twitter or Instagram at SNME Radio. The nice thing about the show, though, if you do listen live, in particular, Survivor Series coming up this weekend, is that we take calls. We're one of the few shows out there that actually takes your phone calls, and you can immediately feed back to some of the garbage that you watch on television, much like Hell in a Cell, which was one of our most popular shows because everyone just called in to talk about the garbage. So that'll be happening Sunday night, immediately following Survivor Series. Find us at tsn1150.ca, and you can stream it live.
All right, Jason, that's going to wrap it up. Thank you so much. We really appreciate your time, man. Appreciate it a lot. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, and we'll continue listening to Sunday Night's Main Event.
All right, thanks, guys.
Yo, this is number one, John Silver. I'm talking about the meat man. I'm talking about that big boy. And, of course, I'm talking about the raw dog. And you're listening to the Working Fans Podcast.
This is the Working Fans Podcast. It's the number one fan, Dave, producer Joe. And today we got one of the best independent wrestlers in the game, Mr. John Silver. John, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good, man. How you doing?
Great. So, basic question to start off with, John. What are your earliest memories of wrestling, and how'd you break in, and how did this all start?
Early memories of wrestling. I'm 28 right now, so I got, Attitude Era, and, right before the Attitude Era was, those are my main memories. So, earliest stuff I remember was, Shawn Michaels was on top. I think, my biggest memory of, childhood memory was the Stone Cold versus Shawn Michaels feud. That's, the peak of my childhood was that.
Yeah, actually, I went to see WrestleMania 14 in Boston. It was Shawn Michaels and Steve Austin. That was good stuff.
Oh, shit. Awesome. I had a kid, so when I was in, first, second, third grade around there, there was a kid that he was a wrestling fan, and you'd think, we'd get along with wrestling fans, but I fucking hated him because he was a big Shawn Michaels fan, and I was a big Stone Cold fan. So I was so we had this big feud, we hated each other. But eventually, became, best friends because we're we both like wrestling, let's just be friends then. so that's one of my earliest memories right there. Obviously, after that, too, Attitude Era. But I was always, a big Stone Cold guy growing up, Undertaker. But eventually, moving forward, I always had different people. I would start to, Jeff Hardy, down the line. Then it became, Kurt Angle, Jericho. My earliest memories was definitely, that early, right before the Attitude Era, started, but, right there.
I was going to laugh if you told me that kid was Alex Reynolds.
No. Alex is a little older than me. He's a few years older than me. I met Alex when we both joined the wrestling school right around the same time. I think he started, maybe 2 weeks before me. that's how I met Alex.
Awesome. What school did you go to? How did you get trained? How did that break in?
I started at NYWC in Long Island, and I came across it because I was on a MySpace wrestling fan page, really a forum basically, and I was 14 at the time, so I'm like, yeah, let's just see if there's any wrestling schools in the area. So I put out like a post, and hey, does anyone know any good wrestling schools in Long Island? And someone was like, yeah, there's NYWC, it's in Deer Park, Long Island, and the head trainer is Mikey Whipwreck.
Huh.
So I'm like, oh shit, let me check that out. So, I mean, we hit them up, we called them, and they're like, yeah, we usually train people, we start usually around like 16, but like you can come down and check out the school. So I went down and checked out the school, and it just so happened that they were doing like shut the top rope that day. So they had me crash pad up, doing backflips, machine stars, stuff like that. So I was like, oh damn, this looks awesome. So I was there with my mom, and I was always an athlete, so, and I was just, at the time, it was like amateur wrestling season, so I was in shape, and they're like, yeah, since you're like an athlete, you're a wrestler, we'll let you start training now if you want. So you got signed up that way.
What other sports did you do?
Amateur wrestling, I played soccer also. Those are the main ones I played, like a national team.
Yeah.
But like, I grew up on my block. I just happened to have like, maybe like 8 kids around the same age. So like, we like played football, like every sport, like every day. Like we're always, every day we're outside playing some kind of sport. So I was like just always athletic, always active, always doing stuff. But soccer and wrestling are my 2 sports growing up.
I mean, those are both great conditioning stuff too. So.
Oh yeah, definitely helps.
So when you broke in, like, who were some of the people who really took care of you in the beginning?
So I guess like the people that were in charge of doing stuff, Mikey obviously was a trainer who, at least like as a kid, I wasn't a big ECW fan just because I didn't know much about it. I didn't know when it was on. I didn't know how to watch it. That's when I know it sounds weird, but that's when the internet wasn't like everyone just goes on the internet for everything right now.
Right.
Like back then, kind of like you knew the internet, you could use the internet, but like on like websites, like I don't even understand those. I was young too. I wouldn't think you would say that, but I wouldn't like I knew people, but like it wasn't always on the internet looking up like YouTube videos. Like YouTube was young still then, so it wasn't like you could just find everything as easy as it was now. So like I watched stuff on Mikey though, and I was like terrified of him, and he was like pretty intimidating. Even though he's very nice, but he's very intimidating. So yeah, I actually forgot what the question was. What was the question again?
Who's some of the guys who took care of you? That's all.
Oh, okay. So I had I think right off the bat was probably Trent from W. He was there for maybe like 8 months or a year until he was signed by WWE for a while. So he was there. He was always like super nice to me. I had my first practice match against him, and just like we was in he messed around. He like had to do like a code red and some other stuff. And I was like 14, 15 years old. So he was always really good to me. Early on, I don't know who. Maybe early on, I think a lot of people were nice to me. I think some people like. Were like, I was the 10th dummy back then. So I joined, I was 110 pounds. So people tried their moves on me. So I'm trying to think of who like really looked out for me and who just like tried moves on me. But down the line, like people like Dan Barry, looked out for me. A lot of people were really nice to me there. Some people like stopped wrestling or did other stuff. But I'm trying to think of people that are still like around and available. Trent was definitely the first one. I like the older guys. So I was like, oh shit, he's been super nice to me. I was like his little brother. He used to say I looked just like his little brother. And then he was the main one, I think, right off the bat. It's
kind of funny because like you talk to like some of like a lot of the old timers in the business, and you hear how rough it was. And not that it's not rough or tough now, but it seems like there's a lot more people willing to help now. Like everybody's a lot more thankful and grateful to have people around and help them in the business.
It's definitely not as crazy. Even wrestling now, from when I started. From back in the day is like a completely different, but even from like now to when I started was completely different.
Yeah.
Like when I started, it was still like we had classes where we got our asses kicked constantly. Now you really can't. You can't do that, and it's probably better that you don't do that to an extent. I mean, you're still gonna like. It used to be like the reason they beat your ass to that so that the people that were tough enough and deserve to be in the ring could do it. And I guess it makes sense because you got a lot of people that really don't deserve to be in the ring that are still doing this. But you can't really just beat people up. I don't know. It's a whole different, the business just changed completely, which is fine. I'm not, I'm not knocking that at all.
No, I hear you. And it's a different time in life, too, now, too, than it's been in the last 10 years, too. So
different times.
I was going to ask you, I did my homework actually. We were talking about YouTube. I was looking up some matches of you before we did this, and I've seen you live at a few Beyond shows too. What are some other promotions you've worked for?
I've done a whole bunch, obviously, but like on a consistent level. I mean, I started at MWC, so that was like my first place I was ever at. That's in Long Island. I had done Chikara for a while. I was at, I still am at CZW. Beyond Wrestling, Limitless Wrestling. For a little while, we were at PWG, Evolved, AIW for a little while as well. Definitely was around, and like I kind of got to do a whole bunch of cool stuff. When I was younger, I used to only just do MWC. I just didn't know any better, I guess, to like move on, and not move on, but like to branch out.
Yeah.
And also, when I was young, like when I started, I was like 14, 15, 16. Like YouTube was still pretty young, and like when I looked up like indie wrestling, because I didn't really know too much about indie wrestling, I would see videos of like CGW and like ROH and people doing like some insane shit, like CW is super bloody and violent, and ROH, like, you see, like, people with Play-Doh suplexes on their head, crazy shit. So I was like, damn, I don't want to do this. And I was a young kid, so I'm like, these guys are going to kick my ass if I start going to these companies. So I was like, I didn't want to. So I think I started branching out when I was, like, 18, maybe a little past, like, 18, 19, and I started to kind of branch out a little bit. So I got lucky around, like, 20. I think I was 20 when I started doing Chikara. It was like a tryout type thing, and me and Alex, they had it was really weird. They was a tryout with all like the wrestlers, but all the guys that were watching, which is all the Chikara wrestlers and the people running it, like still had like their masks on and stuff. Huh. So it was like, okay, this is weird.
Yeah.
But everyone else, I think they did it because I think some of the people that were chosen for the tryout were like, couldn't even be fans. They were so trash. Like they were like did not know the basics of wrestling. They were so bad. So me and Alex obviously stood out way better than everyone else. So we got used for Chikara, and we had to go down to train with them for a little bit. So that was cool too. At the beginning, I started branching out with Evolve, and then I started to Evolve at the same time. So it was Evolve and Chikara, which is pretty cool.
Hey John, it's Joe here. Being from Connecticut, I just started getting into indie wrestling again a few years ago, and one of the first places my buddy brought me was Beyond Wrestling. And your style really stood out because you're hard-hitting, but you also have a sense of humor in the ring. I was wondering what you could tell us about Beyond Wrestling, and what was that American Rana that was held at Foxwoods this year like?
I guess it started out just being a place, and I remember hearing about it when I was like young. It was just a place that they had just tapings, so they just put it all on the YouTube, I believe, and it was just people like wrestlers wrestling in front of other wrestlers, and they just put that on the internet. And I was like, I didn't understand it because I had like at one point I did a show actually with John Gresham, and he was like pitching, you should go to Beyond Wrestling. And I think he said we should tag together because we're both short, muscular guys with buzzed heads. And so he's like, we look kind of alike, so we should team together. And I just didn't understand it. I'm like, I don't know, this sounds dumb, I don't know, I don't know if that's stupid. And then fast forward, eventually I started doing live shows and other stuff like that. And it just looked like awesome place to wrestle. And you get a lot of freedom there, you get, you kind of do what you want. And the crowds there are always like a lot of fun. So it's just like a place where all different types of wrestling is welcome. Like a lot of places have like their niche vibe, I guess. They kind of, I don't even know if they have a niche vibe. They have, people like Nick Gage there that are doing like crazy matches. They have, great, fantastic technical wrestlers there. They have, funny guys, people that do comedy like, Orange Cassidy. So they just kind of have like a whole bunch of stuff, and they put a lot of like dream matches together. And right now what they're doing is called Uncharted territory. So they run a weekly show, just like, Raw, SmackDown, AEW, and it's on every Thursday. I'll be there tomorrow. I'm wrestling Daniel Garcia tomorrow, and it's on independent TV. I don't know the exact website.
Independent Wrestling TV, actually, and I will definitely be watching. I watch most every Thursday.
Awesome. Those shows are awesome. They're a lot of fun, and there's always like different shit, new wrestlers to watch. So I always recommend it because even like some people I've never heard of or don't know much about, and they'll show up, and I'm like, yeah, like, because they have people on all the time. And sometimes they put on some like awesome matches, or sometimes Beyond will just put together matches that you never would see anywhere else, and they're pretty cool to see.
That Discovery Gauntlet I thought was an interesting idea, and it's really gotten us familiar with some names that we wouldn't have previously heard about.
Yeah, definitely. brings in new people. Like I said, some of those people I never really have heard of or seen pictures of. I've never seen them work, and I'm like, oh, okay, they're actually pretty good. So it's pretty cool to see new people like that. But the American Rock, the boxes is pretty cool. The place is pretty huge. A lot of fans there, so it was awesome. And I wrestled Alex, so we had a really good match to beat each other up. So that's pretty fun.
That had a really good storyline going in, and that's why I like that Beyond has their TV show, because you can line up stories to a big show like that. Like you versus Alex Reynolds, it's one of the matches I was more invested in, so I was looking forward to it at the show.
Yeah, definitely. I know it's like with indie wrestling, it's hard to sometimes have a storyline or have feuds like look good, because if you wrestle, you see a show once a month. It's hard to really know what's going on again. Like, at least on, like, Uncharted territory, there's shows every week. And even if there's, like, I'm not there every single week, but even if I miss a week, I'll be there, in 2 weeks. So everything's still pretty fresh in your head. So you know what's going on.
It's funny. I saw that match with you and Reynolds, too. And I was thinking, like, Reynolds is a great heel. But I really liked your heel work, too. But I've seen you do both. You've been a babyface and a heel. Do you have a preference to what you like to do?
Yeah, it's funny because Alex is a good heel, is a really good heel, and I'm a really good babyface. So we came together, so there's times I gotta be a heel, and there's times I'm a babyface. I prefer to work as a baby. I think it's a natural babyface. I obviously don't mind doing either. I'm definitely more of a natural babyface.
It's funny. I would agree, but I would tell you, I saw some match with you, and I'm blanking out. It was a live show. It was an intergender match, and you did this cheap shot clothesline, and you celebrated like you won the gold medal in the Olympics. And I thought that was the best thing, man. It was a great heel move, honestly.
Thank you.
Yeah, your intergender matches and Beyond have been amazing. That's where I think I've seen some of the better heel work. Now, we interviewed Jay Freddie last week, and your name came up as someone he likes traveling with. What can you tell us about working with him in the Thick Boys tag team up in Limitless? And what can you say about Jay Freddie in general?
I love Jay. We get along really well, obviously, with big party boys. And eventually, I do Limitless, and Randy came up to me. Actually, he messaged me, and she's like, hey, I think about putting you and Jay together. What do you think? I'm like, perfect. So I hit up Jay. I'm like, hey, Jay, we're going to be the Thick Boys. He's like, absolutely perfect. So we don't do a lot of, traveling together because he's an upstate guy, and I'm from Long Island. And it's actually, I know it's like the same state, but he's like pretty far away from me. Every year we go to Ocean City now, Ocean City, Maryland, to party. And that's, we get pretty crazy, get pretty drunk. Pretty crazy stuff happens. And it's usually a good drinking buddy, Yeah.
So, you guys fit together real good as a tag team. You really hit hard, and just the teamwork.
Yeah, so, that's why it was funny for a while. I was tagging with both Alex and Jay on different shows. I think, personality-wise, in-ring personality-wise, me and Jay fit very good together. They're very similar. But I think me and Alex, because of we've known each other for so long, and we just take, I think, our best stuff as in-ring matches as a tag team. So we had that chemistry that way. I love Jay. I love tagging with Jay. I love tagging with Alex. So it's cool. It's two different things. So it was it has to be creative with both, which is pretty cool.
It was really cool to see you pop up on AEW a couple weeks ago. How did that come about?
Yeah, we got hit up by Young Bucks, and they said, hey, we want to bring you in for AEW. So awesome. Well, we're definitely in. So it's really cool there. I actually have it on the TV as I'm talking to you guys right now. It's a really fun place. It's a great show. It's very relaxed. Everyone's still there to work really hard, which is awesome. And we'll definitely be back.
Awesome.
It's a good thing.
Nice. Yeah, it was definitely good to see you guys on there. What are your plans kind of going forward in the business? Do you have any immediate goals coming up?
Immediate goals coming up. So I think my goal right now is just to be there full time, be at AEW full time, and that's the main one. Once we accomplish that, then we'll make new goals. But me and Alex, we talked about some stuff in our future. Cause we've had companies talk to us and hit us up, and I think we kind of both agreed that AEW might be the place to be.
It's awesome, man. Is there anything that you want to promote and tell people where they can find you?
Main things I want to promote, I guess, would be Uncharted territory, Beyond Wrestling, IndependentTV.com. Is that what it was again?
Yes.
Independent Wrestling TV.
Oh, sorry.
There you go. Go to the website, sign up, use promo code BEYOND, I believe it is, I hope.
Yep.
I think the week or month or something like that. I don't know. I'm really bad at promoting this. But jump out there and check it out. There's a lot of cool wrestling on there. Even if it's not just Beyond, there's other stuff you can watch as well. ECW, I'll be there. All their shows pretty much. And you can find me on Instagram and Twitter. And my handle is kind of annoying. It is Silver. Number is spelled out. And then just the 1. And I like to post some stuff, some funny stuff, random memes sometimes. I don't know. I just try to be stuff that, like, just, I don't know, random stuff I like to do, I guess.
Yeah, you're a good follow, man. I follow you, and you do some stuff on Instagram. I saw you singing some opera music one day in the car. It's good stuff, man.
Yeah, I do some car singing sometimes. I'll post some memes. I like to do posts for dumb pictures sometimes. Yeah, I'll post some random stuff, but check me out on there.
Yeah, good luck to you in AEW, and we'll look forward to seeing you both in AEW and beyond. Have a good night, bud.
Yeah.
Thanks, man. Good talking to you.
All right, awesome. Have a good night, John. Thank you.
Guys, thank you for listening to the 531 here on YouTube this week. If you like what you hear, you can always find us on Anchor FM, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Breaker, Overcast, Pocket Cast, Radio Public, and on the Apple Podcast where you can subscribe and also give us a 5-star rating. We appreciate you listening. We want your feedback, 531, and if you agree with us, if you disagree with us, we also want you to let us know. And let us know what your 531 would be. Come up with a top 5 and let us know, and we'll tell you why you're wrong. And in order for us to do that, please contact us on Twitter. We're at Fans Working. Facebook page, Working Fans Wrestling Pod. Email workingfanswrestlingpod@gmail.com. It's very important that you actually contact us on these platforms because we want this to be your interactive place to talk wrestling.